What's up, Packers fans? Mark Oldacres here with a brand new series on CHTV known as Packers Prospects. Now, this is something I've actually started over on the CHTV website as well, pre-combine, looking at some players to kind of keep an eye on in the run-up to the draft, some names that the Packers could be interested in. Well, now the combine has come and gone, and we have testing data to go along with these players that we've been watching running up to the 2024 NFL draft, and that helps us to narrow down the types of players that the Packers might be interested in. So going forward, we're going to go through a whole bunch of positions and look at kind of the top 5 players, maybe more, maybe less even sometimes, that the Packers might be interested in based on kind of traditionally what they valued at certain positions, especially when it comes to athletic testing. So first up today, we're going to be looking at running backs, and we've got 5 running backs to go through. In terms of the thresholds and things like that the Packers generally look for, there's not a ton where they need it to be super high, super athletic, but there are some things. I mean, they don't draft the kind of the super small running backs, and I think a lot of Packers fans don't enjoy that a lot of the time, but I think it makes sense when you talk about Green Bay having to play in the cold for several games a year. Bigger backs just tend to hold up a little bit better, and it's not like they only take 220 pounders, but they're not going to be taking those guys in the mid 190s. It's just not really their style. They haven't taken a running back since Brian Gutekunst came in as GM that's under 5'9", inches tall, or lighter than 208 pounds. The last time they drafted a running back smaller than that, under 208 pounds, was 2013, and that was 205 pounds. So it really is kind of a threshold that's kept up over time. Athletically, they don't have to be super fast guys. I mean, they've drafted under Brian even, up to 4.61 in the 40. Eddie Lacy back in 2013 ran a 4.64. He was maybe a little bit of a special case, but there's not too many there that are super high, but they do generally want at least good speed, and they want good, at least, explosion. They want those vert and the broad jump drills to be pretty good to show off that explosion. Agility, not really so much at the running back position, doesn't seem to matter too much, but enough with the thresholds. Let's just get into the 5 players that the Packers, I think, might well be interested in the upcoming draft. So first, we're going to talk about Trey Benson. He's the Florida State running back who is 6 foot tall, 216 pounds, and he absolutely killed the combine. I mean, he hasn't done the agility testing, as most players didn't, but he registered a 9.77 RAS, relative athletic score, if you're not familiar with the work that Math Bomb does over there. He ran a 4.39 40, at 216 pounds, 6 foot tall. That is massively impressive. And that speed is something that shows up on tape, absolutely. I mean, he only got 905 yards in his final season at FSU, but 14 touchdowns. And just the blend of the size, the physicality he plays with, and the speed is really kind of eye-opening. He's one of the most fun backs that I watched in this entire process, even before the combine. So it was really pleasing to see him test as well as he did. The pass pro is good, plenty good enough at his size as well. That's going to be a strength of his, you would imagine, going forward. In the receiving game, he's not giving you much right now outside of the basics. There's not a ton of exposure to real complex route running or anything like that. But at least he does give you that third down value because he can pass protect. You don't have to take this guy off the field on third down, and he can grow, hopefully, into that role. He is, I believe, only 22 years old at this point. Just going to double check that. This is great video. Yeah, 22, or he turns 22 this year, so there's still room for growth with Benson. Secondly, I'm going to talk about another player that was amazing at the combine, and that is Jaylen Wright from Tennessee. Now, he's 5'10", 210 pounds, so a little bit shorter, but he still has that kind of weight to him that the Packers are looking for. He registered a 9.82 relative athletic score, 4.38 in the 40, just a tick better than Benson's 4.39, and he was elite in the explosion drills as well. The vert and the broad, crushed those both. And again, the speed, it does show up. You see it when you watch Wright play. I really like what he brings as a runner. He has that speed. He's got good contact balance as well, and he can juke really, really easily. He can sidestep defenders. He can react quickly to what's in front of him, and he can make people miss. He's not a physical back, though. That is not really part of his game. Being slightly smaller, that's kind of to be expected. And pass pro, that's kind of a little bit more of a question mark with that in mind. This is more of your Aaron Jones build of kind of running back, and he could be the eventual succession plan to Jones potentially in Green Bay. The effectiveness out of the backfield, again, similar to Benson, there's not really as much going on there. And with him not being such a sure bet in pass protection, that does lower his value a little bit. I mean, I have a second round grade, pretty solid on Trey Benson, whereas with Jaylen Wright, I'm kind of looking at, I think before the combine, I was looking between round 4 and 5, and I've jumped that up to kind of round 3 and 4. When you test like a freak, you do just jump up the board, it's going to happen. So that's where I see Wright. I think he's a viable option. He might probably, I would expect him to sneak into day 2 now of the draft just after that testing. His college career wasn't anything spectacular, but I think a lot of people will think that his best years are ahead of him. Next up on the list is just such a fun player, and that is Laube from New Hampshire. Not too many players in the NFL come out of New Hampshire, but Laube, 5'9.7 inches, so he's just over that threshold that the Packers are looking for in the upper 5'9s, not in the kind of lower portion. 206 pounds, so he's kind of right on that border. He's a little bit lighter than Aaron Jones when they drafted him, for example, but it's 2 pounds. It's probably not something they're going to be too worried about. A lot of people wouldn't have thought he was going to test super well, but he did at the combine. A 9.20 relative athletic score. He had elite agility scores, which again, the Packers, not something that they super seem to value at the running back position, but he also had good speed and explosion scores as well. He didn't burn a 4.3 40 or anything like that. It was kind of in the low 4.5s. But plenty good enough, for an NFL running back. It's not all about speed at that position. The thing that stands out about Laube is the pass catching. I mean, he has 68 catches in his final season at New Hampshire. He is a demon out of the backfield. It is absolutely insane to watch. He's just so fun. He really is a running back that kind of any offensive coordinator in the league would want to have on their team. I mean, he's just brilliant. He really is out the backfield. It's not just kind of running your average running back routes. They even just lined him up on the perimeter and just asked him to run a go route at some point, and he won on a back shoulder fade for a touchdown. He really just is amazing out of the backfield. And I really like what he brings as a runner as well. I mean, you can see the athleticism in the way he runs, especially the agility. There's very little wasted motion with Laube, and he can get outside, he can cut the ball back. He's just a really talented player, I think. The question with him is, well, first of all, the power. He's not a power back at that size, short of 5'10", 206 pounds. He does his best, and he can burrow forward and get a few extra yards here and there, but he's not going to be your short yardage back. That's not going to be his thing, and pass protection might always be kind of tough for him too. He gives it his all, but you see him getting knocked back, far often than you should. And this is probably against the competition that New Hampshire are playing against. It's a different situation when you're in the NFL. The age is also kind of a concern with him. I mean, he turns 25 this year, or he already is 25. That's a problem. It's not a problem. Might be harsh. I mean, you get a lot of these older prospects now since the COVID years came in and stuff like that, but there is a projection part of this, and how much better is he going to be? Is he what he is already, and that's all he's ever going to be? In my opinion, that's fine. And I think where he ends up getting selected will reflect that, and I think it will be okay. I mean, I have a round 4 grade on him. You're probably looking at, again, round 4, round 5. He's going to be a day 3 pick, but he's the type of player who's going to stick around on a roster for a long time and just be that kind of complimentary back. He's never going to be your lead guy, but it's an element that the Packers and any team, honestly, would just love to have in any running back room. Next up, we're going to talk about Isaiah Davis. The Packers could dip back in to South Dakota State after having some success there last year with Tucker Kraft. 6 foot tall on the nose, 220, 8.34 RAS. He had good speed and explosion scores, and obviously he's a pretty decent size as well, so that was good to see. The production he had at South Dakota State was just off the charts. I mean, over 3,000 yards in his final 2 seasons combined, and 33 touchdowns combined in those 2 seasons as well. It's just insane. Again, the kind of level of competition is a projection, but he's still a young guy. He'll only be 22 during his rookie season. And I would say when you watch the tape, there isn't maybe one thing or something really spectacular that jumps out about Davis, but you're kind of looking at the projection and how he will improve. He can make people miss. He's just solid, I would say, as a runner. But again, this is going to be a third day pick. You know, he's going to be. I have a round 5 grade on Davis. I'd be perfectly happy if the Packers picked him up on day 3. There isn't really that stud running back this year that's going to go in the first round. I think everybody has kind of come to terms with that at this point. He showed at the Senior Bowl he can catch the ball. That was something he didn't really have to do a lot at South Dakota State, and he has that kind of size to be a plus pass blocker as well. You know, this is a player who could turn into a 3-down back in time. And the good thing about the Packers is that whichever running back they take this year, and they are going to take one, is not going to have to come in and carry the load. Aaron Jones is going to be that guy as long as he's healthy and on the field. So it could be somewhat of a redshirt year, much like AJ Dillon had a few years back behind Jamal Williams. And then you'd maybe take over after Aaron Jones presumably moves on after this upcoming season. The final player I'm going to talk about, and this is not a surprise name to anyone, is Jonathan Brooks of Texas. Now, Brooks did not test at the combine, as many people will know, because he tore his ACL very late in the season. The projections are that he's going to be back and ready for training camp. Now, could those be optimistic or aggressive projections? Possibly, but you know, the expectation is he's not going to miss a big chunk of his rookie season. Even if he does, as we've said, the Packers aren't in need of an impact running back right now. They have Aaron Jones on the roster, but Brooks is, for my money, he's the best back in this class. He has the best chance to be that number one guy who can carry a team, who can play on all 3 downs. You see it already. He only really had the one productive year at Texas. He's 6 foot 216. He'll only be 21. He's still 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 till July, I believe. But he's just so fluid. He just weaves around the field, and as obstacles come towards him, then you know, players to juke or to get past, he just does it seamlessly. He takes everything in his stride. Nothing seems to slow him down or throw him off. He has some power to him as well. It's not game-breaking power. He's not a true power back, but he has that, and he shows he can find the end zone as well. He had 10 touchdowns in his final season at Texas. He just has a good feel for the position, and he's coming out of a production line of running backs at Texas, you know, with Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, both coming into the NFL a year ago. Jonathan Brooks is the next guy in line. He can pass pro. He's really good out of the backfield. He can catch the ball really well. You see him making one-handed catches, difficult catches, and making them look easy. I've left him to last because, again, we don't have any testing data on Brooks or anything that makes you think he's going to be a real Packers type other than the kind of the build. But he would make some sense for them because they don't need him right away, and he has the biggest potential of any running back in this class to be a true number one back for years and years to come. So that's it for the first episode of this series, looking at 5 Packers prospects who I think that's the kind of the guys they're going to be interested in. We're going to move on to wide receivers in our next episode, and we're going to take it from there. That's going to be an exciting one to look at as well. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments your favorite running backs in this class that you'd love to see the Packers go after. If there's anyone I missed or anyone that you particularly like, don't forget to subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at Mark Oldacres, and check out my stuff over at CHTV.com.